Let's bring in Labour analyst Andrew Levy to get to the heart, if we can, of the tension between AMCU and the NUM. Andrew, that report from Bafadili was really interesting. AMCU is insisting that this is a standoff, that this is a sit-in protest, but she also said to us in that report that paramedics went down to check on the health of some of the people down there, and they're not coming back up. And AMCU says, oh, they're staying down there voluntarily as well. Any clues from what you're hearing? I mean, it's so difficult to know because does it sound like a hostage situation to you or a sit-in?
Look, technically, I think we would say it is a sit-in. It's a protest. They're refusing to move. It's actually an unprotected strike, an unlawful strike. In many respects, it indicates not only the fractured state of our labour relations, but also a total disregard for the law. Now, I think if we look at the situation, with any kind of sit-in like this or hostage situation, and I have no doubt that the reality is that it is a hostage situation, that there are a small number of AMCU activists who are probably preventing people from coming up from the mine in an attempt to force management's hand. Now, whether the people they're holding hostage are AMCU members or NUM members is neither here nor there at this stage. The fact of the matter is, as we so often see in Labour, a small minority are able to cow and control a much bigger majority. Now, the difficulty with this is that we are however many thousand feet underground. There is a difficulty in access. There is a difficulty in people leaving of their own volition, so it's very easy to hold them there. And there are huge safety concerns in terms of the whole situation. And one of the things one does not want to do in an occupation of this nature is to try and force it by evicting the people by sending in security. That is going to result in absolute mayhem.
It was sorry to jump in there, but that reminds me of what the police apparently said this morning. They are there, very present, but they are not going down, and apparently they raised concerns about another Marikana being possible.
Well, that's absolutely right. And I think the police are quite correct that to try and force the situation is the worst thing you can possibly do, one way or the other. And if we go to Marikana, that in itself, the underpinning movement there was, in fact, tension between AMCU and NUM. Now, if we look at the history for a moment, it is edifying. NUM are the old blokes on the block, so to speak. They emerged in the 80s, largely recognized by the big mining houses, and the current state president, Cyril Ramaphosa, was the first general secretary and led it for many years. They grew rapidly. Now, round about the 2000s, a little bit later perhaps, as a result of internal tensions within NUM, a particular organizer, namely Joseph Matunjwa, was expelled from the union. And he took the approach, well, if that's your attitude, I'll go off and start my own union, which indeed he did. And the power base of AMCU was in and around the coal mining areas of Witbank. They rapidly spread because it was possibly seen, and Matunjwa would have capitalized on this, that NUM were comfortable. They'd been there for a long time. They were recognized. Perhaps they were not giving as much attention as they might to the concerns of people at the coalface. They were more concerned with meeting with management, with driving their cars, with doing whatever they were doing. And so it was quite easy for someone like Joseph Matunjwa, who is something of an orator and something of a strong personality, to bleed membership away from NUM. Now, of course, NUM and no union wants to lose members, because you lose members, you lose subscriptions, and you lose your income. But nevertheless, AMCU were able to grow very, very quickly and very, very powerfully by saying we remember our original mission and we are close to the workers. Now, where you have this kind of situation, and again, historically, if we look at what the Labour Relations Act does, it does allow for closed shops. So even though public support or worker support may have bled away from a particular union like NUM and gone to AMCU, NUM still hold the whip hand in terms of we're the recognized agreement, we have the union, we have the closed shop, and go away. Now, there are provisions in the LRA to resolve this, and I'm understanding that the matter is before the courts, as indeed it should be. So this is, in fact, the ground-based swell of AMCU shop stewards, of AMCU organizers, of AMCU potheads, if you will, who are ignoring the procedural approach. Now, the employer got a court order, but once again, it just shows the absolute impotence of a court order in a situation where there's no respect for the law. So what are you going to do? Go underground and wave a court order at 500 people who are being kept hostage, saying the court says you must come up?
Exactly. I mean, this is the thing, is that, this process was before court, as you say, even before the standoff began. Last night, the mine, Gold One, got an interdict saying you cannot hold people against their will. So there's a process in the courts already to recognise AMCU, indeed, if they have got more support than NUM in that particular mine. And as you say, that doesn't seem to be trusted, perhaps. Where does the mine management come in? Because I think, you're talking about the history of NUM in a sense that they were a little too cosy with mine management. So in a particular situation like this, do you think that mine management has a role to play? Or is this really a bit of a turf war playing out between two unions and they must just get out the way?
That's absolutely right, Sally. The standard wisdom with regard to inter-union disputes is that they are the most difficult for management to handle, simply because management doesn't have its hands on the levers of power which can resolve the dispute. It's between the two unions, and whatever mine management do, if it's seen to favor one side above the other, is going to have a very, very negative response. So the best thing they can do is hands off and stay back, which is, it would seem, what they are doing. But this, of course, is multiplied to the nth degree because of the safety concerns, because of the lack of communication, for the inability for those who may need food, water, medication, whatever the case may be. And the tension is, well, if we try and force the situation by way of the police, who will not want to be involved, or private security, who are going to feel the same way, it's going to turn into the Marikana underground, and that would just be awful. So management's best approach is to hands off. We're not going to favor any one union over the other. There are processes within the Labour Relations Act, within the law, which can resolve this. Let us follow the procedures.
Thank you so much for your insight. Absolutely fascinating. Labour analyst Andrew Levy just talking about the standoff currently underway at Gold One Mine in Springs and saying that the police are right to stay out of it. Going underground could cause violence. And also, he says, it is the unions that have to manage this, the competing unions, that is.